Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 5th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their territory upon which we gather with gratitude. The first item we have on the agenda this evening is the adoption of the minutes held on September 9th, 2015. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Beale. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, and that is carried. The next item is the approval of the agenda, that the October 5th Council meeting agenda be approved. Motion moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you very much. This evening, Council, if you'll permit me, before we get to our delegations on the agenda, we have a few sad announcements to make. Earlier last week, on Tuesday, we lost former Councillor Carolyn Waters, who served with me in my first term. And I wanted to point out in the audience tonight we have her husband and three of her daughters, I believe. Am I correct in that? Esme, Emily, and Alexandra. And we wanted to extend to you our sincerest sympathies. Carolyn, as is in the case with an insidious disease like cancer, was taken from us all too soon. And I know that before I go any further, I know that Councillor Patterson would like to make a motion to that regard.
Thank you, Mayor Lefebvre. I'd just like to make a couple comments beforehand, if that's all right. I met Caroline Waters 10 plus years ago, and when I was a director in the Chamber of Commerce and first started attending council meetings. And when I decided to run, I asked Caroline for her opinions, and she's always forthright and straightforward. That was who I recognized. She impressed me with her forcefulness and understanding of issues before council. And when I asked her for advice before running, she said, be prepared, come with questions, respect this community, all the things that she did. And Caroline's love of this community and her family was obvious. She called Parksville the jewel in the island's crown, and has served, I'm not even sure how many years, 12 plus, I know, in some form or another in government. She was the MLA Ron Candelon's consistency assistant. She was a past president of the Parksville and District Historical Society. She was a member on the Advisory Planning Commission, and very passionate about the library. And those are just a very few things, and very passionate about this community. So under what I'd like to do is make a motion that in the memory of former Councillor Caroline Waters, that Council approve the planting of a memorial tree and plaque with the appropriate location to be determined by staff and Caroline's family, and that funds be provided from Council contingency.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. And I just finally like to add that having served with Carolyn on council, following up on Councillor Patterson's comments, that she really loved Parksville, and her legacy in Parksville is still around. If you look at the mural on Craig Street and the railway station, among many other projects, she was very, very involved and very devoted. And I can say that the highlight of Carolyn's time in Parksville, that she really loved Parksville. There's no two ways about it. So once again, our sincere sympathies to the family. And on Friday of this week, we lost another former councillor who had been on council from the year 1990 to 2002, Jim Banks. And I don't know if any member of Jim Banks' family here this evening, but we wish to extend to Mr. Banks and his family our sincerest sympathies. He was also another, anybody that sits on council, they're pretty devoted. And Jim was involved in a number of things. I know that I'll always be grateful to Jim When I came on council in the late fall of 2002, I took his place on the Arrowsmith Water Services Committee, and he spent many hours giving me a lot of background about the dam and where this particular project might go, and I'll be always grateful to him for that. And I know that when they moved away for a bit, they went to Sparwood, and I believe Jim got elected to council when he was in Sparwood, so he served in 2 communities as a councillor. So, Councillor Patterson, I believe you have another motion in that regard.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor Lefebvre. So that in the memory of former Councillor Jim Banks, Council approve a memorial recognition to be determined by staff and Jim's family, and that funds be provided from council contingency.
So thank you very much for having United Way out today. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before, I will speak for a few minutes, but we have a new video that features local people from Parksville as well as other folks involved with United Way Central and Northern Vancouver Island. So if it's okay, we'll run the video it's just a couple of minutes, and then I'll speak for a couple more minutes. Thank you. Every year, something magical happens in our community. Hundreds of caring volunteers and donors give generously of their time and money to help people they may never meet. Lives are changed for the better, and our community is strengthened. Behind every changed life is someone who made it happen. Together, we're a possibility.
United Way is working hard to create healthy people, strong communities, and reduce poverty, and provide opportunities for youth to learn and grow in their community.
This year, your donation will help over 20,300 people on Central and Northern Vancouver Island.
From poverty to possibility.
Possibility is having a roof over my head.
To overcome an addiction.
A fresh start.
And a second chance.
Possibility is a place to go.
A stable home. An education.
A healthy start for kids.
Educating children on mental health.
Letting kids be all they can be.
Support after a brain injury.
Safe learning environments.
Possibility is creating leadership opportunities for youth.
Making a difference in people's lives.
Learning about my culture.
Improving lives locally.
Connecting with my community.
Making real change for people in need.
Giving people the tools for a stronger future.
A second chance in life.
Possibility is
getting people together to cook together.
Access to support programs in your community.
Healthy people, strong communities.
Possibility is having a friend.
A neighbor or a family member.
Helping navigate through grief.
Planning for the end of life.
Helping one person at a time.
Together, we help seniors matter.
United Way, making a difference in the lives of children.
We are improving lives and building communities.
United Way makes a positive difference in our community.
By supporting the United Way, you're investing in your own community where you live, work, learn, and play.
So why should you donate to United Way?
You're making a difference locally.
I donate to the United Way because I know they will be thoughtful and thorough with my investment.
I volunteer 2 hours a week with United Way because my time makes such a difference.
I donate to the United Way because I know my donation stays local and helps out those in need in our community.
Because we want to make our community safer for everyone.
I give to the United Way because it allows me to make a difference.
Your donation helps people with spinal cord injuries and other physical disabilities adjust, adapt, and thrive.
Your donation is helping people in our community.
So United Way is our charity of choice.
Your donation makes a difference.
It stays local.
And it helps your community.
Behind every changed life is somebody who made it happen.
I hope you're able to donate not only today, but for many years to come.
The United Way is about everyone pulling together collectively. We all solve problems together. We make our city a better place to live.
Together.
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 Together, we are possibility.
Thank you for your continued support. Okay, so 2 questions. What's our campaign theme this year, if you can guess? Together we are possibility. And obviously one of the key messages that I wanted to talk to you tonight about is that local donations stay local, supporting local programs. So that was a video.
In the great 1974 film The Godfather 2, there's a scene of...
Hit up there. Yeah. Not sure what that was. Definitely not part of the United Way. Many people don't realize that the United Way is active in Parksville. So I'm just here to thank everybody who is a donor, because some of you here are donors to United Way, and also just to remind you of the services that United Way is supporting through local donations. We fund, everybody knows Forward House, I'm sure, so that's one of our newest grants that we're funding this year. We're also funding the Arrington Therapeutic Riding Program. Lots of families come from Parksville to the Arrington Therapeutic Riding Program. One of the biggest issues that we're seeing across the island, up and down the island, is grandparents raising grandchildren. Quite a lot of them here in Parksville, so obviously we're funding the Grandparents Raising Grandchildren program in Parksville. Oceanside Hospice, I know that's a big favorite of many of you here on council, and obviously we're very committed to funding hospice as well. So we raised just under $30,000 in Parksville last year. We got requests for double that, actually over $75,000 for grants in Parksville. So obviously the more money we can raise in Parksville, the more we can fund in Parksville. So one of the questions that I have for the City Council is, or one of my asks is, can we come back to the city staff and talk about running a workplace campaign in the city? That was done in the past. It hasn't for the last couple of years. Again, it's about just offering to employees whether or not they would like to donate to United Way, and if they give in Parksville, those donations stay in Parksville. So that's really my one ask for tonight, and also for each of you as individuals to consider making a donation to United Way. You'll see our website there. The other thing I wanted to mention was that a lot of people don't realize that United Way funds the Success by 6 program, helping vulnerable children and families. People are nodding their heads. You're aware of the WOW Bus. I'm sure many of you know about the WOW Bus. That's a Success by 6 initiative. We fund it every year. We have for many years. It's obviously a no-brainer when it comes up to our funding allocation time to continue funding that, because it is getting on the road and getting to, to various parts of the community that couldn't maybe get down to the library or someplace else to access those resources. I also want to mention the Better at Home program. SOS is a great partner, has been a great partner with United Way in the past, and SOS was chosen as the agency that we would fund the Better at Home program. So that's another United Way program that's helping seniors stay active and in their homes longer. So that's Better at Home, Success by 6, obviously the grant programs that we offer as well. And I just want to say publicly a thanks to the 10 workplaces that support United Way. And so all of the banks, Coastal Community Credit Union, CFD, the local base, we've got a lot of great support in our workplaces. And so we just want to acknowledge them publicly, because it's those donations from those employees, obviously, and many individuals who give through our direct mail every year that support local Parksville programs. So that's it for me. I just wanted to thank you again for declaring it United Way Week, and help us spread the word that United Way is very active locally. And we're just coming up to our recruitment process for our board, so we're looking for a local representative from Parksville to sit on our board. So I know you guys are very busy, but if you know of anybody who's interested, definitely send me an email. So thank you. I'll take any questions, but I handed out a little bit of information. Obviously, we're funding 61 programs from Central and Northern Vancouver Island, 33 of them in the Central Island area. We know many Parksville citizens drive down to Nanaimo to access some of the services that we don't fund here. But United Way is alive and well here because of donors who donate. And obviously, we're very grateful to our donors. So thank you for your time today, and hopefully the city will consider us having an employee campaign, a United Way campaign, if not this fall, next fall. So any questions?
Thank you very much. I noticed in your video, I recognize a lot of excellent people who do a lot of wonderful work in the Oceanside area and in the Nanaimo area. Thank you. Questions from Council? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Your Worship. More of comments rather than questions, and I just wanted to thank you for coming here. And certainly you've mentioned, made reference to a number of excellent programs that are well used and well appreciated in the area. And I just wanted to add a thank you as well for having a presence at the recent UBCM, which was held in Vancouver. I had the pleasure of meeting with a couple of people there who went into a lot of detail about how they partner with organizations here and the various programs that they fund. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Actually, we'll mention one thing that we are bringing to the island in the next year is BC 211. So if you have a chance to Google BC 211, that's a web and phone-based service that is much like 911 and 411. It's an information referral service. So we're just fundraising for that, and we're planning to bring that out to our part of the island. It currently exists in the Lower Mainland, up the Sunshine Coast and Fraser Valley, but is not out the rest of BC. So if you call BC 211 or go on their website, it has no resources from Parksville, Nanaimo, Campbell River, Comox Valley. So that's something that we're working to bring out to the community.
Councillor Salter.
And I just want to reiterate what Councillor Beale has mentioned. I've been on several boards as a board member, and we have requested grants from the United Way. So I know how valuable your work is, and I just want to thank you for all the hard work you've done in all of the communities really across BC. And thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thanks for celebrating United Way Week. Appreciate it.
When you want to contribute to the United Way, how can you tell us how we can do that?
Yeah, you can go directly to our website. There's a big donate button there on the website, and our website is uwcnvi.ca. So that's United Way Central and Northern Vancouver Island.ca, bit of a handle. Or you can call us at our office. As I said, it would be great if we could do a workplace campaign within the city, and just give people that option.
I know you do a lot of wonderful things, and one of the things that I know in our community that's really necessary is this medical and non-medical home care that you're doing through the SOS.
Yeah.
And I know that's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I think that's such a key thing given the demographics in Oceanside and Parksville in particular. We're thrilled to be doing that. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
The next delegation we have is Jim McMillan and Herb Welch, speed of traffic near Foster Park, where we had a wonderful reopening of Foster Park on Friday afternoon. It was a great event. I believe you were there. Make yourself at home, gentlemen. Turn on the microphone. No. Is that on?
That's good. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Herb Welch, and I reside at 5785 Sanderson Road in Parksville, which is right across from the washroom in the park. And my cohort here is Jim McMillan, and he's at 659 Pym Street. We would like to congratulate the city of Parksville for creating a safe children's play area in Foster Park. However, there is an unsafe condition existing at the entrances to the park that should be addressed. Many vehicles speed past the entrances at a high rate of speed, putting pedestrians, especially children and seniors, at high risk. We are also concerned about the volume of traffic. An additional 40 cars approximately will be coming from the new subdivision at the top of Sanderson Road, and this will only compound this unsafe condition. We circulated a petition to the surrounding streets and the users of the park, resulting in 63 signatures. And I believe you have a copy of those signatures? Yeah. And we would request that the city implement these recommendations of the petition, and we hope that we can work proactively to solve the situation. Thank you. Jim, did you want to say something?
Yes, I've got some additional words here. I'm probably just reinforcing what Herb has said, but I have something to say. I live at the corner of Pym and Sanderson, which is right where the two roads that circumvent the park intersect. And first of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for giving us the opportunity to come and speak to you here. I have not participated in a city event before, and it's a new experience for me. So these are my words, and as most of us are aware, I wish to address you about the traffic situation on the roads around Foster Park, centering at Pym Street and Sanderson Road. This is the only park in the area, and with the new playground, it has become a popular recreation choice for children, pet owners, and groups seeking a quiet retreat close to home. One of the basic qualities appreciated in a park of this nature is a quiet place away from this noise of speeding traffic. The present road signage allows a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour with a warning signage to be prepared to slow down. Many motorists travel without regard for the hazards they are creating for park users, especially children and senior citizens. So right now we have the top sign up on our signs around the park, and then we are requesting that we add this 30 kilometers signage underneath that one, and that changes the whole meaning of the sign. The change in meaning is that when you have this one added, it means from dawn to dusk the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour. No questions asked. The top one is 50 kilometers per hour. Be prepared to slow down. There's a big difference there. And we have also been talking to local police. I've put in several requests, and I have yet to see any patrol there. So we've in effect left motorists to choose their own speed limit. In many cases, they're not making a good choice. We request that 30 kilometer per hour speed lines, 30 kilometer hour signs be added in addition to the existing warning signs, as is typically done in neighboring communities, for example, Qualicum Beach and Campbell River, where I've spent much time. The signage of 30 kilometers per hour, as I've already mentioned, is in effect every day from dawn to dusk with that addition. Other areas of parks will have reduced speed limits already. For example, on Chestnut Street, we have a speed limit of 40 kilometers per hour, even without a park nearby. In addition, we request a speed retardation barrier, speed bump, or rumble strips in order to remind those who don't regard the speed limits that that they should slow down regardless of the signage. If they choose to obey it, not to obey it, they're going to have some bumping and rumbling as they drive over. Finally, we'd like to request an additional crosswalk at the west end of the park at the intersection of Foster Drive and Sanderson Road to provide park users with safe access to that end of the park. With two new significant subdivisions in the area, including the newest one that will use Sanderson Road as a main access, traffic volume will only increase. I think it has to. I think that now is the time to place traffic controls on the roads serving the park to protect what we have and to provide safety for the increasing numbers of citizens who are going to be using the park in the future. So these are our requests, and we're really hoping that we'll get some support on this. I think it would make a big difference to everybody in that area, and with increasing numbers of people coming on, it would be only appreciated by people here now as well as people coming in the future. And the users of Foster Park would like to thank you for hearing us, and thank you for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just before I go to members of council for questions, and I know they're going to have questions, I'm going to ask the Director of Engineering to give us an update. I believe you have a report coming to council later on this month?
If I may, Your Worship, that's correct. What I would suggest in a way to proceed, I am aware, of the issue here. Mr. Welsh came to see us in engineering, and we had some discussions. What I would suggest is when I come to council with the report, I'd have to come to council anyways to lower that speed limit. According to our traffic bylaw, I have to do that. At the moment, we are collecting data, speed and volume data on Sanderson, partly as a result of Mr. Welsh's inquiry. What I'm trying to do, or what staff is trying to do, is to put forward kind of a structured, consistent approach to this, and what we recommend is for us to finish collecting our volume and speed data, and then we could come back to council with our recommendations in terms of addressing the issues there. It does three things for us. First of all, it identifies the magnitude of the problem, the magnitude of the volumes and the speeds, and then once we deploy measures to control the issue, we can actually measure if they're effective or not. And then thirdly, it really will ensure that we put in place the correct solutions to this. So that's kind of the thought behind it. And there should be a report coming to council, if it's not within the next couple of council meetings, to give our recommendations.
Members of council, questions? Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple questions. One is, how long has this been going on? How long has it been that you've had people speeding by that park or not slowing down, and there's children playing in the park, and you've been feeling that it's not safe? How long has that been going on for?
For quite some time. And there's one other thing I would like to point out. I've lived there for over 30 years, and there is a way around. They don't have to go down Sanderson. They can go down either Phillips or Foster and down around that way. But even when it wasn't paved, they were still roaring down Foster Road. And I think we should find ways of discouraging the traffic coming across the park.
Any further questions from members of council? Councillor Oates.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I had the privilege of attending the reopening the other day of the park there, and it's a beautiful facility, a wonderful addition to our community. I would be in strong support of reducing the speed limit around that park. I think there's a natural speedway there on one of the streets there that I saw that needs to be addressed. I believe that it would be prudent for us to wait for the report coming from the Director of Engineering before we make any decisions. But I can assure you that the need to reduce the speed around that park is one that I would certainly support. And just as a final comment, it was so nice to hear the kids' voices and the other day at the reopening there. And despite Mayor Mark standing in the road, that one little kid was having his loop around and around and around. It was a wonderful event. And I know at that event someone mentioned about the speed limit issue. When I left the park that day, I took a look around, and I certainly believe that what your concerns are valid, and we need to do something sooner rather than later. So thank you for raising it, and thank you for being good stewards of the neighborhood over there, and we look forward to getting the results that we both desire.
I appreciate your response. There has been several near misses on that intersection at Pym and Sanderson with people that tend to go around the corner without looking who's there. And that will be a real asset to the park and the community to control the traffic.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that I live directly across from the washroom with the main entrance to the park, and I've seen several times where young women have just gone and grabbed a young child to stop them from running across the road. And I know you're going to wait for the report, but I think you should also consider speed bumps, because this is the only thing that's going to discourage these people from, even though the speed zone's there, it's just like school zones. When school first opens, the police are there, but they can't be there all the time, and people tend to speed up.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I also strongly support the lowering of the speed limits and anything that it takes to slow the traffic down. So if that's speed bumps or those other rails that they use, the rumble strips, Yeah, and I also think that because this has been going on for so long, time is of the essence now, and so that we now have a report happening, I'm wondering if that report will be ready by next council meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. Will we have it by our next council meeting?
Pardon me?
Will we have that report by our next council meeting, is my question.
Will it be ready by October the 19th, which is our next council meeting?
I'll do my best to get it ready for then. I want to make sure I get all the necessary data that we need, but I'll do my best to make it on that meeting.
Thank you. I just have a question from staff. Given the issue that everybody knows about and everybody agrees with, would it be possible to, what about signage? Do we have to wait for the report? Could we put up some signs, some speed signs in the meantime with the children, with the children symbol? Or is that, we have to wait for that to?
If I may, Your Worship, the actual playground signs are there. It's the speed limit part that isn't there right now. It's the white part.
30 kilometers.
The 30 kilometers now are there right now.
What about the children, the symbol with the children? That's there?
That's there right now.
Well, not the speed limit sign, though.
But not the speed limit sign. There are two different signs.
Do we need to wait for the report for the speed limit sign?
It's up to council. I would recommend that, but it's up to council.
Okay. Yes. We'll have their hand up. Councillor Oates.
How quickly could a speed limit sign go up there, and what does council have to do to make that happen?
You can. Okay, we're gonna go to the CAO here.
Yes, Your Worship. I believe that to change the actual speed limit, there has to be an amendment to the bylaw. So it will have to come back to council. It's not a simple case of passing a resolution right now directing us to change the speed limit. It is something that will have to come back to council through a change in the bylaw. So I would suggest that you wait for the staff report and the associated recommendation that comes with it.
Councillor Oates, then Councillor Beale.
Is there anything we can do tonight to expedite the process? I know we're waiting for the report to come back. I know then we have to embark on a bylaw change. Can we anticipate that the report is going to support the need for a speed limit change and start the bylaw change process here tonight and gain us a couple of weeks instead of waiting for the next council meeting?
CEO?
If I may, Your Worship, through the report, when it comes forward, if it does indicate that speed limit reductions or whatever else is required, we will incorporate whatever bylaw amendments into the same meeting for council.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would also support doing something to improve the situation in the speed limit. And in fact, I learned tonight that it wasn't automatically 30 kilometers in a playground zone, so I appreciate learning that too. I also understood from the engineer's report, from Mr. Figuera's report, though, that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this report will not only perhaps look at this specific area, but may have, in fact, implications for, let's say, other playground zones. Is that correct?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Beale, I think what you might be referring to is, I hope to have it ready for this meeting, but a traffic calming bylaw ready for the next council meeting. It would basically give us a structure that when we get traffic calming issues into the city, it would give us a structure to be able to identify the severity of the issue and to prioritize it along with all the other traffic calming issues. I think it's come to a head now that we really need a traffic calming bylaw that allows council to be able to address these issues in an efficient way.
Yes, Councillor Beal.
Okay, thank you. And given that, that was what I understood from what you were saying earlier, and given that it may have slightly larger implications for traffic calming, not only in this circumstance, but perhaps in others that arise, I do think it's important to allow staff the time to conduct and complete a full report, and understanding that you want to do it as soon as possible. But I just wouldn't want to rush it, given in the circumstances, although we want it soon.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo Councillor Beal's comments and having it go forward to staff before coming back to us. I just have a kind of a question to our CAO. I'm anticipating that this will, if we were to look at speed bumps or something to that effect, that it would have to be in our budget going forward. So my question is, when we get our report and our recommendations from our operations, and that, would it be prudent to be thinking about a motion or something at that time if it asks for calming measures for items to be added to the budget?
If I may, Your Worship, any staff report that came forward with significant costs such that they couldn't be accommodated within the existing budget would come back with a recommendation to Council for additional funding.
Councillor Salter.
So with all due respect, I just need to clarify here that we know that there's children in the park. We know that there's been near misses. We know this has been going on for years. And now we need, now at this point, we know that the people who are living and working and children that are in Foster Park, we know that they've been speaking to this for a long time because I've been here and heard it. I'm wondering, what is it that we need a report about? What is it we need to know that that we can't make a decision to lower the speed limit now, that we can't put up a sign that says 30 mph? What is it that's stopping us from doing that, that we now need a report from staff who are now doing a report? What are they going to, what is it? They're going to say 20K or 40, or what exactly is it that you're going to do that we don't clearly see right now?
I think we see the need for Foster Park, but there are also other areas in town that have requested speed bumps or requested lower speed limits, and I think that has to be looked at in its entirety. But I think it's pending. It's not a case of we're going to wait another 6 months. This is due any time now, and there's going to be obviously involved the expenditure of funds too. So we have to have a look at that. Yes, Councillor Oates.
Amazing what a week together at UBCM could do. I agree with Councillor Salter. I think that I don't think, with all due respect, with any reports that are coming, I don't think there's anything that's going to come to a report that's going to convince me that there's a playground anywhere in the city that should have a speed limit above 30 kilometers an hour. So if that's the case, then I would suggest that we that we put in motion whatever we need to put in motion to get the bylaw done to change the speed limit for all parks. I don't think it's it may affect some other areas. No, I don't want to say parks, playgrounds. Let's be specific to playgrounds. I think playgrounds is what we're dealing with here. And if there is overriding issues with other parks and it has implications on other parks, then let's deal with those as we go. Right now we have an issue that's immediate, that's in front of us, that everybody agrees is real, is valid, and we have the ability to do something about it. So, you know, tell me what the motion is to craft a bylaw for Foster Park. I'll make the motion. I move that City of Parksville staff begin the bylaw process to put the speed limit at Foster Park. Put Foster Park the speed limit down to 30 kilometers an hour.
And I'll second that.
Further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. So, Mr. Figueroa, you've got your part of your report written when it comes to Foster Park.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to be clear. My motion is specific to Foster Park. There may be implications with other of our parks that need further consideration, but based on what I saw up there, there's no reason why Foster Park shouldn't be at 30 kilometers an hour.
Councillor Beal.
And could I just ask for some clarification, given that we're talking about playgrounds, and the playground is adjacent to Sanderson? I'm presuming we are speaking about the speed limit along Sanderson and not automatically the speed limit along Pym, although that might change as well.
My intention was for all streets bordering there, not just the one, all of them there, because they come down there and they make that turn and they just give her.
Yeah, don't they ever?
So we're talking about Pym and we're talking about Sanderson.
My intent, Mr. Mayor, was any streets that are directly abutted to a playground, that those be governed by the 30 kilometer an hour rule.
Okay.
Clarification on that. It's two streets. It's Pym. There's an entrance on Pym and the main entrance on Sanderson.
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much again for what you do for that park. That's a great little park. I took my grandkids there, but they've got to come back because it's a much better park than it was. And the little guy did try to run over me with his scooter.
Yeah. Well, of course, the history of that park, it was developed by the neighbors and local businesses in the town. It really didn't cost the city initially anything, and so it's a proud thing. We in the neighborhood are proud of that park because we built it. And could we leave this if the speed zone is not enough, that we can get back to whoever and see if we can get something else if it's needed?
I would imagine that'll be in the Director of Engineering's report also, okay. So we can deal with that at that time. Okay. Thank you very much again, gentlemen, for coming.
Okay, thanks for hearing us.
Thank you, people.
Okay, we're now on to the report section of the Council's agenda. Chief Banks, would you please give us a background on the issue regarding policy for exempt staff overtime during an emergency operations?
Thank you, Your Worship. What you have before you tonight is a policy that was drafted to provide exempt staff with overtime during the activation of the Emergency Operations Center. Currently, exempt staff are not eligible for overtime. During an activation of the Emergency Operations Center, it's probably safe to say that the exempt staff will be putting in large amounts of overtime to deal with the emergency and that. One of the things is through the disaster financial assistance, all overtime costs, all operations costs are refundable, or we can claim them from through the Emergency Management BC, and the policy is before Council for their approval.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Salter. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Oates.
Just so that we're clear on this, this is, as we understand it today, is at no net cost to the city?
I would say it's cost neutral, yeah.
That is correct. all the overtime costs are eligible for compensation through the disaster financial assistance from the province back to the city.
Should that funding become unavailable from the province, would the city then be responsible for this overtime?
If I may, Your Worship, under this policy, yes, we would. I would suggest that if the province changes their processes, we should revisit this at that time.
Okay.
Can we count on staff to remind us if that changes? Okay.
Okay, any further questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. The next report we have is the consideration of a development permit for 275 Lodgepole Drive. Mr. Russell, would you please give us the background on the issue regarding this development permit?
If I may, Your Worship, we have a proposed 3-lot subdivision that's adjacent property within the agricultural land reserve. As such, within the official community plan, it's identified within the farmland protection development permit area. So prior to further consideration of subdivision approval by the subdivision approving officer, the guidelines with respect to farmland protection need to be addressed on the property. So the report basically outlines the proposed mitigation measures, which in this case include a 15-meter no-build area adjacent the agricultural land reserve boundary, as well as a planting strip along the 3 main portions of the lots with parallel fencing as per the recommended provincial agricultural screening standards.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the 4 recommendations that you have before you? Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any discussions on the motions? Councillor Oates?
Just a matter of clarification. On page 17 of 79 of our package, it's the map. It's just executive summary. Got it? So that little strip there that's behind Wren's Road there, that's that easement you spoke of earlier, the no-build area, is it? And the lots we're talking about is in that triangle?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Oates, a better diagram is actually provided with much greater clarity, if I can get the page here. On page
24?
24 of the agenda.
Right.
So you can see the 3 lots in a row. There's a no-build area there, and it also extends to the other part of Lot 3. Lot 3 is actually in 2 pieces. That's due to the, it's not buildable basically on that one sliver, remnant sliver section. If it's helpful, I could certainly go on the screen.
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
Any further questions? Councillor Salter.
So this is within the agricultural land reserve now, this property, where the subdivision is requested, or no, or it's on the edge of it?
If I may, Worship, through to Councillor Salter, it is not within the agricultural land reserve, but is directly adjacent the agricultural land reserve.
Any further questions? Councillor Salter.
And so has there been any positive or any discussion at any rate from the neighbors or the farmers or anybody in that area with regard to this subdivision? Have we had any feedback of any type?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Salter, subdivision is a land right established under zoning. So back in prehistory, when council zoned that property single-family residential, council put its mind to those kind of matters at that time. So at this point forward, the public process is not part of the subdivision process. It is a technical exercise. So there is no public input process with respect to subdivision. It's the zoning.
Well, I appreciate that.
Councillor Salter, another follow-up?
Follow-up, sorry. I appreciate that, but I'm wondering, again, has anyone made any reference to the subdivision now? Has there been any feedback from the community now?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Salter, I am not aware of receiving any phone calls or correspondence with respect to the subdivision.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question through you to Director of planning. On the recommendation number 3, that prior to the final subdivision and having the landscaping securities held sorry, I think in my package it was for a minimum of 3 years, or is that just till it's completed, the on-site landscaping?
If your Mayor Worship, so it's for a period of 3 years to ensure that the plants have established themselves in a healthy fashion.
Oh, okay.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay, Mr. Russell, once again, would you please give us the background on the issue regarding the follow-up report consolidation of the city's zoning and development bylaws, which I know has been going on for, taking a lot of work and a long, long time. Over to you.
If our Mayor Worship, so before Council is a follow-up report with respect to the project to basically amalgamate the resort area bylaw, which zoning bylaw, which was formerly a regional district bylaw, with the city's main zoning bylaw. So that bylaw work has now been completed. Been pretty extensive, the number of legal descriptions and of all the lots involved, hence its complexity. The actual change itself is really actually more straightforward than the bylaw preparations. We have a rural 1D zone that we inherited from the regional district. It would be changing to the city's version of that, which is A1, agricultural 1. We have a RDN tourist commercial zone, which was CM5. That then becomes our CS, I believe it's CS2 zone, our tourist commercial zone. So that is pretty much a match. Same with the single-family residential to our single-family residential that covers the rest of the city. There are 3 unique zones where the bylaw has prepared 3 zones for those specific, where they didn't match, essentially. There's also a minor official community plan amendment, just a tweaking of wording that was, again, this was originally envisioned in the original OCP project, but the wording wasn't quite sufficient. So.
Whew. A lot of work. How long have you been working on this project?
Myself and 2 other staff have been viewing legal descriptions and maps and old legal plans to get the properties correctly identified and correct. So more time than I would have liked to have spent.
Thank you. Thank you for good work. Questions from Mr. Russell. Councillor Patterson.
Not so much a question, just a thank you for your hard work. And when I was reviewing, it is quite a bit of legalese and boring technical wording, so I greatly appreciate that you were able to condense so that I could understand. Thank you. And your time and commitment.
I think I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Beale. Are there any further questions? Oh, I'm sorry, CA, do I have to deal with them separately?
No, I just wanted to put one other comment. Blaine is actually the 3rd city planner, director of community services that has worked on this. This is a huge undertaking, and he should be given every recognition for the effort put in to get this completed.
Well, you know, if it wasn't so time-consuming, I'd also thank him and sing happy birthday, but I'll do that some other time. But congratulations to you and your staff. This is a great effort to sort of kill the Tower of Babel and let everybody understand the same language and talk about the same things. Very important. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those are all those recommendations. 7. Thank you. Carried. Nobody opposes it. Okay. Continuing on with reports, Mrs. Comis, we have a report on renewal of the Rogers Site License Agreement. Would you please give us the background on this issue?
Yes, Your Worship. This is an agreement that the city has in place with Rogers Communications for a cell tower in Topbridge Park. It is part of the TELUS Communications Tower. The city entered into an agreement back in 2010, and it is now time to renew that agreement. It provides $10,000 per year in revenue to the city, and it is a very simple lease to manage. It requires very little of staff's time or attention.
Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Beale. Any questions for Mrs. Comas? Councillor Salter.
This isn't a question, actually. It's information with regard to cell towers. I just pulled these off the internet there. One is the Canadian Medical Association. Journal reports Health Canada's wireless limits are a disaster to public health. And the second one is a parliamentary report warning cell phones, Wi-Fi, a serious health issue. Both of these are from our Canadian Medical Association, and they both indicate the dangers of Wi-Fi. One oncologist interviewed by the association said Canada's safety guidelines for wireless radiation need to be urgently revised due to the obvious risk of cancer. We already have a cell tower there now, and personally, I can't support this. And the reason I can't support it is because I really think that we need to implement the precautionary principle here and recognize that when we're being told by our medical staff that this isn't safe, it isn't as though they're not certain. They're absolutely certain. They're putting out reports. It's in the journals. It's known that it's causing cancer. Children are now getting brain cancer that they never used to get brain cancer. I can't support this. And the other thing I'll say is this. There's a really great quote out there that says, people who give up their freedom for temporary convenience deserve neither. And I understand how convenient it is to use your cell phone or Wi-Fi, whatever. But what are we trading to do that? What are we trading? $10,000? Is it worth the death of our friends, our family, our children, because they're going to be hit with cancer because of all the Wi-Fi that's out there? I can't support this.
Thank you, Councillor Salter. And I know that's certainly an issue in our community by a number of people. My contacts have been with Island Health, and Island Health tell us where we get our advice and guidance that this is no more dangerous than anything else. So I don't want to get into a debate tonight about it, but there are two sides to the argument, and I've had lengthy discussions, and I've forwarded some concerns that some citizens have had to Island Health to deal with those individuals. So we'll have to wait to see what comes of it eventually, if anything does, with regards to the Island Health issue or the Island Health stand now. That this is not the issue that some organizations and some folk make it out to be. It's as simple as that. Well, but what can you do? You've got to take your advice from somebody, and these people are designated rather to protect our health. So that's what it is. Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to clarify, this is for a renewal and not an expansion of services.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Sure. Can we make that a recorded vote? Oh, always recorded. Thank you. Yeah, and it is an issue. There's no doubt about it. It's an issue and some people are sensitive to those waves. Oh, pardon me? No. Okay. We're going into bylaws now, and we have 3 readings on the permissive taxation exemption bylaw, and I'll read out the recommendation before asking for a mover and a seconder. The permissive taxation exemption bylaw 2015, number 1521, be read 3 times. I need a mover and a seconder. Did I go too quickly? Oh, I missed 5A. I'm terribly sorry. 2 readings. Okay, that the planned Parksville Amendment Bylaw 2015, number 1492.2, and Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2015, number 2000.101, be read a first and second time. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Beale. And all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Next bylaw. The one I had the wrong the first time. That's the bylaw that's permissive taxation exemption bylaw 2015, number 1521, be read 3 times. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by, I need a seconder, seconded by Councillor Oates. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, that is carried. And final adoption, the recommendation that the Parksville Advanced Voting Opportunities Bylaw 2015, number 1520, be reconsidered and finally adopted, signed by the Mayor and Corporate Officer, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Okay, we're moving on to new business, and I think tonight I'll go last. I've got some items to report on UBCM, but I'll let other members of council who are, most of us were there. Any items under new business? Councillor Salter.
Well, I just, for clarification, we had a meeting, and you've been announcing that that the city is looking, or mayor and council are looking to waive the water referendum. My question is, when did we debate that and vote on it? Because I don't recall, and I couldn't find it in any minutes that I reviewed. So I can't see where that came to discussion or a debate or a vote of any sort, but I'm seeing it in the paper. So I just need some clarification on that, if I may.
The purpose of bringing that to the attention of the ministers and the premier at UBCM was to see if there was a possibility. It had seemed illogical to hold a referendum when, in effect, whether or not the results of that referendum fail or succeed, with regard to potable water, we're going to have to do it anyway. I think if we had received some sort of I'll use the word agreement that was going to change, we would have, you're right, we would have had to bring it to council. But this was just an attempt to bring this to the attention of the government. And as you'll recall, one of the comments that the premier made was that more than likely this will not happen before November 21st, but that they're going to look at it in terms of future occurrences when people have to be called to vote on a referendum for potable water, which is, and to use her own words, which is illogical. Mr. Salter.
Thank you very much for that explanation. However, prior to our going into the meeting, I asked you if we had debated this in council, and you said you thought we had. And so I carried on. I haven't been able to find it in our minutes, and I understand that you have a reason for wanting to bring it forward. I have a reason for not wanting cell towers. However, I don't get to say that we're not going to have them. It had to have been debated, and there had to have been a vote on this before we do that. And so I'm wondering if there was, and if there was, maybe I missed that meeting, but I can't find it in the minutes. So where is that in the minutes that we agreed that we would want to waive that referendum? Because I don't recall it. That's my question, not why, but where is it that we agreed as a council to do that?
Well, we couldn't agree to do anything until the government, right now it's government legislation. We were trying to change government legislation. So you can't hold a vote on something when the legislation tells you clearly that you have to hold a referendum. This was an attempt at UBCM to bring to three ministers, I believe, Minister Fassbender, the Premier, and also what was the other minister?
No,
we
two.
brought it up. Only two, yeah, the minister and Minister Fassbender.
Sorry, and so for follow-up again, I'm just asking when that it went forward. I recognize it went forward. I recognize that we did it. I recognize all of those things, but it is my understanding that when we make a decision, or when we step out and make announcements that the city or the council, the mayor and council wish to do an action, whatever that action may be, that has to be discussed, debated, voted, agreed or disagreed here at council, not as something that comes into a package when we're walking in to speak to a minister. It was something that as council, for instance, Council Patterson wasn't even there. She didn't get to speak to it. She wouldn't have known we were doing it. So it's not, we all have to be responsible for what we're doing, for what we're asking for. And I felt uncomfortable because I didn't recall that we had done that in council. You said you thought we had. I'm just asking, where are those minutes then? When did we do this?
I've been talking about this now for several months with regards to the illogical nature of the government charter. And as I have to repeat that it wasn't an intention to go there with a vote from council that this type of bylaw, or I guess it's a law in the government charter, to have it change, not to have it changed, but to bring it to the government's attention that it needed changing. And we've been discussing this. I sent a briefing note to everybody a week or two before the conference, and I didn't have any intention of calling the vote because I knew that I had the support of the majority of council that this should be brought to the government's attention. Had the government said, "Yeah, we're going to change it," then we would have come back to council and we would have debated it. I don't think we needed a motion to bring it to the attention of the government that it's an illogical situation to call for a referendum on potable water when in effect the Ministry of Health is going to force you to do it anyway if the referendum fails.
Last follow-up.
We could debate this all night, but it didn't happen, and that's the way it went, and it's over.
Okay, so one last follow-up, though, is that I would request then in future that we have a debate and we have a discussion in council before we take these recommendations to the Premier, to a minister, or to anyone else, so that we have, because there was no vote. You may have assumed that you had council's agreement, but council weren't even all there. We didn't have a discussion in. I would request that in future we have that discussion prior to making announcements or going into meetings with anybody on something that the rest of council aren't aware of or haven't made a motion on.
My agreement, I had tacit agreement in the fact that I sent out all of the items we were going to bring to the minister's attention, that I had sent it out prior to the meeting. At that point in time, if somebody had said, "Look, let's have a vote on it," I would have gladly done it, but nobody came back, and I took that as an assent that we were going to do that. So, Councillor Oates and then Councillor Bia.
I find that a little bit curious, given the fact that we walked into a meeting with the Ministry of Agriculture not knowing what you were going to speak about, Councillor Salter. I understood that was the purpose of the meeting there. In any event, I support the notion that having a referendum is a waste of money. I support the notion, as I said to the Premier and as I said to Minister Fassbender, it puts us in a very uncomfortable situation if we take the decision to the people, they reject the referendum, and then we force the decision on them anyway. So I very much support the mayor and council bringing forward that initiative when the Premier of the province said it was illogical. So I'm not sure why you have a big concern with us going and advocating for the community, trying to save money for the community, and trying to represent the community so that when they cast their vote on the 21st of November, it means something. I'm not sure that we need permission or we need to have a vote to go forward and advocate on behalf of our community when, as the mayor says, it's been a topic that's been very much discussed. That you disagree with it is well known. But it wasn't as if the mayor went in secrecy and made this presentation to the senior levels of government. What he was going to say was shared with us. He provided the briefing notes well in advance of the meeting. And if we had an issue with what was going on, it was imperative that we did it before the meeting and not do it after the meeting. I have no problem with what happened when we went in there. I think that we rightfully should have been going in there, expressing our concern about having a referendum whose result may not have any bearing in the end. So it certainly wasn't. It was certainly something that I supported the mayor in doing.
Councillor Veal.
Thank you. And I was there, and a slightly different take on this, though, in that I fully expected that should there be an indication that this could be looked at quickly, that we would have further debate on it, because I do think that the population has learned that we're going to have a referendum and would expect to have one. But the meeting with the Premier and also with Minister Fassbender, that was presenting information which highlighted the seeming the contradictions in regulations for us, and I think that it was appropriate to bring it forward. So I don't see that that indicated a full debate and a full vote on that at all.
What I will do as mayor from time to time, I will send out positions or possible interest on council on certain issues. When I sent out the briefing notes, I would have expected to hear back from somebody to say what you just said. I don't agree that we should maybe take a council vote on this, but that nobody did that. Everybody was in agreement with all of the papers that we sent. Well, we did, and I mean, I couldn't do any more than give everybody a couple of weeks before the entire briefing note. So, to me, I considered that to be discussed with council. I mean, council could read what was there and what was being said and what was being proposed. So, anyway, I'll do it a little differently the next time. I can assure you of that. Okay. Any further updates on UBCM or any new business? New business. Go ahead.
Thank you. I do have a couple of items for new business. First of all, as no doubt everyone is aware, there was a fire recently at the MAC, the Macmillan Arts Centre, also shared ownership with PDACL, the Parksville and District Association for Community Living. And they are presently in it. Now, fortunately, it was limited to the exterior, and that has helped. But there was smoke damage inside and so on. And from my conversations with people who are involved with the Oceanside Arts Council, it's very much in a wait and see, and insurance and all those things that are taking place. But nonetheless, I think that, well, in fact, I know that the Arts Council and the MAC would certainly appreciate a show of support from the community to help them at this time. There certainly are some costs as they wait and have to look after the art exhibits. And one way that one could show some support is to take out a membership in the Arts Council if you haven't already done so. So I make that plug on behalf of the Arts Council and the Macmillan. They did not ask me to do this, but I do think it would be a lovely gesture to help them out at this time. I also want to mention that I recently attended, on behalf of the city, I attended a community roundtable forum hosted by Knox United Church, and it brought together quite a large number of representatives from a vast array of organizations in the community: SOS, RCMP, the school district, ourselves, and many, many others were there. And we broke up into smaller groups and discussed what are the perceived needs in the community, and also what are the roles of different organizations within the community, and how do they help the community as a whole. It was very, very interesting. Probably no surprise again that housing and also the issue of homelessness came up as a strong theme at all the tables. Also the need for ongoing communication with different groups so that we can work together. And this is also very helpful for Knox United Church to help them go forward in identifying the ways that they can best help the community. I don't have the notes from the session yet, but when I get them, I will forward them. It was really a fantastic morning, and again, very, very well attended. And finally, I'll mention that the Tourism Association has recently held their strategic planning session, and I know that that's a very well organized, a very well-run organization, and they're, as always, planning for moving forward for the future and for the betterment of our tourist-driven community. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lefebvre and Councillor Oates. I did not attend UBCM. I have in the past, and I always appreciate the comments and the feedback that come back from councillors. And
going forward, and all the paperwork that we see prior to UBCM and the motions and that are put forward. So I wanted to say that. But I sit as the liaison for the Parksville Historical Society and Museum, and next Friday is their last market of the season. So I just wanted to touch base on that. They also are having a Halloween kind of I get more information tomorrow, but it's for children, and it'll be on put out to the proper media outlets and everything, so I'm kind of looking forward to that as well. And I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I will bring it forward next. Thank you.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been a busy couple of weeks since we last sat here. Today I attended a First Nations workshop in Nanaimo along with a number of our staff put on by the FCM. There was 30-plus participants in there representing over 20 different stakeholders. The purpose of the workshop was to identify opportunities for cooperating on infrastructure funding requests and that sort of thing. I had hoped that it would deal more with the nuts and bolts of how you apply for that sort of thing, but it was really about a relationship building workshop, which was very good. We have a lot of work to do in that regard, and it's meetings like that are good first steps towards that. So it was good to see Parksville there and see Parksville so very well represented there. I certainly look forward to maybe putting into some action some of the things that were suggested there today. I'm the council liaison to the Beach Fest group. The Beach Fest group have already started planning for next year, such as the dedication of that group. This is a dedicated group of volunteers from the Oceanside area. There's people on that from the RDN, from Parksville, and from Qualicum, from all around, and they come together. It's a true testament of what we achieve when we work together like that. We could all take an example from. We could all do well by taking an example from their playbook. On this Friday, they're having an event in this room here where they're going to be presenting their checks to their gate ambassadors, and so if anybody's available, I'd like to see you come to that. But the Beach Fest group, they're an incredible group of people. They work very hard. They're very proud of our community, and they give us something to brag about. And for that, I'm genuinely thankful. I want to speak a little bit about UBCM. I was certainly encouraged by the meetings that we had with the different levels of government, the ministers and the Premier. They seemed to understand our issues. While we didn't come away with any firm commitments, we did get some suggestions on things, some avenues that we could pursue as we go forward trying to achieve our goals, especially with respect to the Resort Municipality Initiative. Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if you're going to report out on that. Okay, I'll leave that alone. But there was some encouragement there of how we could do things to help ourselves in achieving that status, given closer. Anyway, I'll leave that to you. I'm personally hopeful that the time we spent together at UBCM will pay dividends at this table. It was great to get to know Councillor Salter and Councillor Beale better. Councillor Greer, I don't know if anybody's seen the pictures, but he did a fantastic job advocating with the. But we do not have a copy of that picture, Mr. Mayor. Do you have a copy of that picture?
He was kissed by the Premier. We'll try to get that picture.
We'll try to get a picture of that there. I'm not sure if it's something that we could brown envelope under the media's door or something, but of course, then again, Greer doesn't need any more. Anyway, it was a good. It was really good. We had really good conversations. The networking that happened between our council, I know it's going to pay dividends here. We had it was great to spend some time there. The time we spent as council was time well spent. And lastly, Your Worship, I want to speak about you. I had the opportunity to observe you while I was over there. I've never seen such a tireless advocate. For a guy that don't like getting up in the morning, you were promoting Parksville at 8 o'clock in the morning till sometimes 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night at the various events. And I kudos every opportunity that you had. You advocated. It wasn't unusual to be mid-conversation with you, and you'd see someone, oh, I got to go talk to him, and off you'd go, and you'd be advocating. So it was a great event, highly recommended for what it did. I believe it built a sense of team on this community that is always going to be beneficial for us. And I certainly appreciated the time that I spent with my colleagues there and look forward to working together with the tools that we've gained.
And I still hate getting up early in the morning. Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. I did neglect something, and thank you, Councillor Oates. Echo that entirely. It was a fantastic week. It was very intense, from 7 in the morning till late afternoon or into the evening, and certainly lots to learn about. I do have an item with new business. I have a motion to make, a resolution regarding special council meeting, a budget. I move that a special council meeting be held on Wednesday, October 28, 2015, at 6 p.m. in the Forum at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center to discuss the draft 2016 to 2020 municipal budget and financial plan.
Second.
I'm going to make just a few comments. First of all, in terms of the voting that went on with regards to the items on the agenda of UBCM, there was a lot of support, and key votes were made on the environment for the province, whether it was shipping oil tankers or clean air and clear water and all of those sorts of good things. That was a very, very some very interesting debates on that. There was the issue of First Nations, and there was an issue also of, I think one of the more impressive sessions or voting arguments I heard was with regards to forming this task force with regards to the rape culture that exists in our country, and it was very, very well spoken on behalf of those that supported it, and it was supported by the majority. In the meetings that we had, I won't go over all the details with all of the ministers that we had, but one of the interesting things that came out of the meeting with the Premier was that in her final speech, she announced the fact that she was talking about smaller communities doing their share for BC, and she was very congratulatory over the fact that the Beach Fest in Parksville drew 105,000 people over a 6-week period, and she mentioned that to the entire audience, and you could hear lots of oohs and ahs. So it was quite interesting that way. We met with the Minister of Agriculture, and that was a short meeting. He was a very busy man. I don't think we got more than 15 minutes with the minister, and we brought along our colleague from Coombs-Arrington, Electoral Area Director Fell, who wanted to talk to the minister also and make some important points. The meeting with Minister Bond was probably the more important of the two. And prior to that meeting, I happened to meet a couple of mayors that wanted to see Parksville as part of the resort municipal initiative. And they were very supportive and wanted to tell me that when I was meeting with Minister Bond to let her know that I had their support to meet. And that's going to happen. The whole issue of resort municipal initiatives is being reviewed now, and Parksville is going to be a part of that. And one of the mayors that's part of that group has called me and asked me to get together, and I'm going to bring along the executive director of the Tourism Association, Mr. Blaine Sipos, and possibly the CAO. But that went very, very well, and we were welcomed to participate in that group, which was encouraging. Perhaps the longest meeting we had was with the ADM of Health, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Ted Patterson. No relation, I don't think, Councillor Patterson. But we had about a 45-minute meeting with him to bring home the fact that we have serious issues with regards to the lack of physicians or sufficient physicians in the Oceanside area. Councillor Salter brought up the issue of practical nurses also at that meeting and the importance of that. And we had a really good debate, and we're going to be following that up. I've spoken with the ADM last week, and we'll be getting together. I've asked a few doctors to form a small task force because I think it's important that doctors talk to doctors or doctors talk to the Ministry of Health, and that's going to be happening in the near future. We also gave him a series of questions to answer, and we'll hopefully have those answers by the middle of this month, that he assured me that that would be done. The other interesting meeting I attended was on reconciliation, which was a subgroup seminar that we had early on Monday morning. And I can tell you that I have never before been in a room when I had First Nations women get up and testify as to what they endured at these residential schools. I won't go over that because it was traumatizing for me to hear it firsthand. But it's certainly something that over time, as I was talking to Councillor Oates today about the meeting with the First Nations, it's certainly something that we're going to have to work on over time to acknowledge that and to get over that and to move forward with our neighbors who are the First Nations. And I'm convinced now, after listening to all of these discussions, that Canada is really an Aboriginal country. We're all immigrants, no matter when we came here. My relatives came here in the 1600s, but we're all. It was long before any of us got here. It was an Aboriginal country. The last thing that the Premier said on the very last day, I was sitting in the audience, and my heart leapt a little bit, that she was setting aside $75 million for small communities under 25,000 population. So I want to get a hold of our MLA to talk about what that's going to look like. It hasn't been framed out yet. And I also want to add a comment about our MLA. With the exception of the meeting with Minister Fassbender, she was at every other meeting, I believe. Maybe the Minister of Agriculture. I don't know if she was there or not. But she was there supporting us all the way. And we knew that when she was in the room, some of the first comments we got was, yes, your MLA, your minister has told us all about this, and we're pretty much up to speed, but we'll hear it from you too. So that was gratifying to have that kind of support with us in the room. So all in all, it was a good conference. I have for anybody that wants to talk about it or anybody that wants to see it, I have the booklet of all of the issues that were brought up, and many of them were done in bulk because everybody was supportive of a lot of motherhood issues and important issues that have to be dealt with. So the conference, as usual for me, was very, very invigorating and very, 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 very worthwhile. One final comment. A lot of us went to the reception put on by the Republic of China and mainland China, and we listened to some interesting statistics in terms of the kind of trade that's going on. It's in the billions now between British Columbia and China. And while I was there, Councillor Oates is right. I gave my calling card to a few people, and they gave me theirs, some business folk. And I had a visit from a businessman this past Saturday afternoon who was coming through Parksville and asked if he could spend a half an hour with me, and he did. And there may be something coming of that because they're obviously interested in branching out. So we'll see where that goes. But these conferences are invaluable. Yes, Councillor Rose.
I just want to highlight that the meeting that we held with the Deputy Minister of Health, we went there with a couple of our regional partners. So Tunis was also
Mayor
there.
Westbrook and Councillor Luckman.
And I think that speaks to Parksville's willingness to cooperate with our neighbors in shared interests, as well as the meeting that we had with the Minister of Agriculture when Area Director Fell asked if he could attend to advocate for his citizenry up there, and we agreed for him to come along. And I think that bodes well for our future relationships.
Councillor Salter was able to organize that for us too in her discussions with Electoral Area Director Mr. Fells, so that was great. All in all, it was a good week, a week well spent, and I'm sure that things are going to come of it. It's just like everything else, it takes time, unfortunately, time and money. So on that note, that's it. Sure, go ahead.
Just wanted to clarify that when we were talking to the Minister of Health, it wasn't we weren't talking about practical nurses. It was nurse practitioners.
Nurse practitioners, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Very, very important point too, because nurse practitioners can do a lot of work, take away a lot of the workload from doctors. Okay, we have to go under, I need a mover and a seconder to go to pursuant to Section 91C of the Community Charter. Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item relating to labor. Have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Salter. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll go on. Pardon me?